The racing in Japan is very respectful compared to America. The kind of like unspoken rule is that if you do have contact, you both have to go to each other and kind of like apologize.
Do you feel like because you live in Japan now that you started to pick up Japanese mindsets?
I think having like that, you shouldn't have those kind of excuses. You just gotta like work harder. I feel like it's kind of like a Japanese culture thing. More recently, I tried to start playing into more of like my American personality and being a little bit more brighter. And then everybody just receives that more nicely. Then they think like, oh, she's just like a gaijin.
This is Hana, guys. She is a professional. Sorry, I said the name wrong.
That's the American version of me.
I'm very okay. It's Hana. Hana, is it flower or is it?
No, I actually don't have a kanji for it.
Oh, you don't have a kanji for it. But it's not Hana, guys. This is Hana Burton. She is a race car driver here in Japan. What kind of racing do you do here?
So I do a lot of single-seater racing, wheel-to-wheel racing. So in the back there's the Vita. That's what I was running last year while also practicing in a Formula 4 car. That's like Formula 1 but slower.
And we're shooting here today at a location. This is Passing Mark.
Yeah.
And this is your old team, you said.
Yeah. So when I was running the Vita, this is the team that I was running with. The Vita.
Vita. This is Vita.
Yeah.
Basically today, guys, I wanted to kind of learn a little bit about Hana because I think you started racing pretty recently, within the last couple of years, professionally. And we wanted to talk about, what led her to come to the decision to move to Japan because you're actually from LA. You are half Japanese, but you're originally from LA. So I kind of wanted to figure out like why you decided to move to Japan, why you decided to race, how the transition, what you were doing before in the US, and all that, and just kind of hear your backstory. Because I think what you're doing now is, we see how well you're doing and all this stuff that you're doing, and with racing. I saw you drifting, or at least learning how to drift.
Oh, maybe I do a little bit of that just for media, but I don't really do too much drifting.
Oh, damn.
No.
All right. You set me up. Because
That's okay.
I'm a big, Tokyo Drift fan, probably. I'm just a fanboy of Tokyo Drift.
Initial D?
I did not watch Initial D. Just Fast and Furious. How many Fast and Furious movies have you seen?
I've seen the first one and I've seen Tokyo Drift.
Okay. All right. Because actually Tokyo Drift is the reason why this podcast is called Live in Tokyo. I don't know if you know. It's because I wonder if you know how they live in Tokyo.
Oh, I see.
I heard it I was at a club and I was like trying to think of the name of this podcast. And then they played the song and I was like, oh, I got it.
So it's not Live in Tokyo.
Technically it's Live in Tokyo.
Okay.
Live in Tokyo would also work, but I do like Live because it looks like it has like the red dot on top, which is like Live in Tokyo. But I digress. It's not about me today. This is about Hana and your journey. So could you also do a self-introduction of yourself in English and Japanese?
Oh my gosh, in Japanese. You're going to make me speak Japanese.
Yeah.
I feel so embarrassed to speak Japanese in front of English-speaking people. はじめまして、バートン花です。日本とアメリカのハーフで日本でレースに参加しています。
Is that fine? Yes, great.
よろしくお願いします。
And then English.
Hi, my name is Hana Burton. I'm a Japanese-American racing driver, currently racing in Japan. And that's all that's interesting about me.
That's funny. Like the Japanese was actually, you had more fluff to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can tell you've done this a lot. So in Japan, they always do jiko shokai.
Yeah.
And I don't know if like this is really requested in America. It's not, right? Like, oh, please
Not
introduce
really.
yourself, right?
Yeah.
So I had somebody actually tell me on the channel when like I should stop having people introduce themselves because it's like difficult or awkward. But in Japan, where you do jiko shokai. But I do understand, like it is kind of weird to
I
do
remember
it.
when I was younger and we had to do jiko shokai like for Japanese school in Japan. We would say like we're yonin kyodai and stuff like that. Whereas like in the US, you don't really disclose that information.
Yeah, like yonin kyodai, meaning like I'm a family. I have 4 siblings or whatever.
Or I'm yeah.
Well, okay, yeah, but let's jump into that because you are half Japanese, but you told me that you didn't learn that much Japanese. You didn't go to Japanese school like some people did on Saturdays. Do you regret that?
I regret it now. When I was growing up, I was kind of embarrassed to speak Japanese because I grew up in predominantly white areas.
Which areas?
Like Thousand Oaks.
But your family is from Miyazaki, right? Your
My
mom's
mom's
side.
from Miyazaki, yeah.
Okay. And do you go back to Miyazaki a lot?
Yeah, so the first time I went to Miyazaki was probably when I was like 2 months old. And then I'd go back every summer.
You're 26 now?
Oh gosh, I'm 27.
27 is not so bad.
In racing years, it's really old.
Oh, yeah. Well, so a lot of racers. So you started racing at what age?
I started when I was 25. Like wheel-to-wheel racing, I started in 25. On the circuit, I started just by myself, like 22.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and you said that's old, like 25?
Yeah, because normally people in F4 are like 16 to 18 years old.
Okay.
If you're trying to go to F1.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not trying to go to F1, so.
And F1 is Formula One, right?
Yeah, Formula One.
Yeah, I was just about to say though, like, isn't Vin Diesel like 50 and he's still racing cars and
Yeah, it's a little bit
jumping?
different. There's like different
just trying to
categories of racing. Yeah.
I'm just trying to tie it back to Fast and Furious. But okay, so a lot of racers, they start earlier. So what were you doing before racing?
So I got into racing because I was working in marketing for a car company, a Japanese car company in the U.S.
Which car company can you say?
It's called HKS.
HKS?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
a tuning company.
But you weren't trying to race, or were you interested?
No, I was not interested in cars at all.
Okay,
Yeah.
but you're tuning cars?
Yeah, but I was doing social media management for another creator.
Okay.
And then HKS wanted help with the social media side and also like graphics and just marketing in general. And then I guess if you do marketing, you have to learn about the product. So I had to learn a lot about the tuning products and then also cars. And then when we would go and do R&D on these products, we had some extra time. So I would take the demo car out to drive on the circuit. And that's how I got into driving, because I actually had really bad driving anxiety when I first started on the street. But then when I got to the circuit, I thought it was so fun and I just got like addicted to it.
Wow. Well,
Yeah.
so when you say driving anxiety, you mean just going out on the road would make you feel like nervous?
Yeah, I wouldn't drive. I had my license for like a year and a half before I actually used it.
When you say the circuit, it's just like obviously not on the real roads. It's a closed course.
Yeah.
That just made you like awaken something within you that you're
Yeah.
just like, I like driving.
Yeah.
And was that like age 22 or
That
ish?
was 22.
22, and then you're like, okay, maybe I can start driving more. But racing, and you've talked about this before, it's a very expensive sport.
Yeah.
How did you get started funding?
Then, like, I was doing it with the HKS demo car. So I think at that point, I was just saving up every month. It's cheaper when you do it, when you just go to the circuit and just drive yourself, not like wheel-to-wheel racing. And then when I got into wheel-to-wheel racing, my first race was supported by Goodyear because I helped do some video like marketing their tires and stuff. So I used my social media to be able to race, I guess, for these companies.
And then it was just kind of slowly building from there, and you're using your social media
Yeah.
to...
So I don't really have any like race sponsors much.
Oh, really?
It's mostly like social media sponsors, and then I use that money to race.
Is that more rare than what other people would normally do?
I'm probably like the only one in Japan doing that. Yeah.
The only one. I mean, also you're a female racer, so that's also something rare. But what would somebody else be doing? Maybe on the more traditional route, or somebody who's racing here?
I think most people who have sponsors are usually people who started when they're young. So normally when you start young, like people want to support your journey all the way, and then you like have these connections that you can take with you up until you're at a higher level. So it's usually people like that, starting at the age of 4, and then like they sell a dream, like help this 4-year-old, go to F1 or something like that. And then karting is really expensive. Like you can get sponsors to support that, and then step into like Formula 4 or whatever is really expensive, but then they have all these connections from sponsoring karting that they can bring over to Formula 4, and then like they kind of grow with you. I think other ways people do it is if you're connected with a business and then you help make other business deals, sometimes they'll give you a cut of that deal, and that's like kind of your sponsor. So like say you connect a water bottle brand with a hotel brand, and then like the sales of that water that they sell in that hotel or whatever, you get a cut of that as your sponsor.
Yeah.
And you advertise that on your car or whatever.
I guess a lot of people understanding of sports, at least mine, for example, in the United States, is at the highest professional level, like NBA for basketball or NFL, they have a salary. And yes, they have sponsorships, but people kind of know how much the salary is. But would you say, like, for racing, at least in Japan, it's more like the way that racing is funded and the drivers make money is sponsorships?
Up to a certain level, but then I think a lot of drivers can make money if you're a factory back driver. So you get a salary from like Toyota or a Honda or Nissan to like race in Super GT driving a GT500 car.
That's right. Are you allowed to say who your biggest sponsors are?
It's kind of hard because we're in a new year right now. So this year it's going to be Toyota Gazoo Racing and then Tom's. And then we're still working on our title sponsors for the Formula 4 race car that I'm driving.
Can you give me a backstory then about this photo? So when you first started racing.
Oh, Keeper.
So this one, Keeper. Did you get to design this outfit?
No, I didn't design it.
Oh, you didn't design it?
It was designed by, I think, the series organizer, because Keeper is the series sponsor. That was Fuji Championship Race Series and Kyojo Cup.
So you just said that you're a Kyojo. And Kyojo is like, I don't know what Kyo stands for, but I know Jo stands for girl.
Kyoso Joshi.
Kyoso Joshi. So competition girl, right?
I guess, yeah.
So Kyojo stands for competition girl, and that's like a series in Japan for racing.
Kyojo is one of the series that I race in. I think this is the 8th year that they're doing it, and it's an all-women's race series, and it's getting quite popular and very competitive because compared to America, it seems like in Japan there's a lot more women in racing, starting from karting. And then from this year, we're changing from that car, the Vita, over to a hybrid turbo Formula 4 car. Yeah. I mean, there's other all-women series around the world. There was W Series, which I think they ran for 2 or 3 years, and then they ran out of funding. And then now under Formula One, F1, there's F1 Academy, which is an all-women series that got really, really popular in the last 2 years. And I think it's going to blow up this year because there's a Netflix documentary coming out about it.
Wait, are you in that?
No, because I'm not in F1 Academy. They have an age limit cut off, unfortunately.
What, an age limit?
Of 25.
Why does this age thing keep coming back?
I know, it's so
25?
sad.
Life doesn't even start till 30.
Well, I mean, you're probably not gonna make it to F1 if you're starting that late.
You did have a story about your first race. Can I ask you your first race? What happened?
My first race in the Yaris was okay, like with Goodyear, and then with Green Brave was okay. But then when I switched to this car, my debut race was in the pouring rain. A car like spun out in front of me, and these cars, they don't have ABS. They don't have like an anti-brake locking system. If the tires don't grip and you smash the brakes too hard pressure or at too high of a speed, the brakes will lock up. So like your car will just like continue to slide forward if your front brakes lock up. So that's what happened. A car spun in front of me, and when I went to go brake, I locked up and I hit them.
Oh no, you just crashed straight into them?
Yeah.
What happened to you and the car?
The bumper and the radiator broke. So I retired the car because the coolant temps went up. So I had to bring the car in, and then it was like very shocking.
I mean, this is your first race, so were people expecting you to like?
Yeah, I don't know why people had so much expectations on me. I think it's because I'm a foreigner, so they're like, "What can she do? This is what I can do."
she's gonna take number one.
And then too, like they saw like I have like I'm also like a content creator, I guess, with a bigger following, so they had a lot of expectations on me, but then I showed them what's up.
Well, how far in the race did that happen? Was it like
the first lap?
The first lap.
Yeah.
You crashed in the first lap. You know, that's a great memory though.
Yeah.
Because you can only go up from there.
Yeah.
That's
no, seriously. I'm so happy that happened like in the beginning of my career. It was kind of like sad because I thought, I shouldn't be a race car driver after this.
Really?
I just thought I should quit. But I had a friend there who was actually a NASCAR driver, Jesse. I don't know how to pronounce his last name, Iwuji. But he told me like, oh yeah, I crashed in my first race. And then like from there, like this is how successful I am. So like just keep going at it. You'll be fine. But I thought my world was ending. So
wow. I mean, I would be embarrassed, I guess, if it was like my first performance. Actually, you know what? This kind of happened. My first jiu-jitsu performance. I got injured in the first 30 seconds and I had to walk off. I couldn't even compete. I hurt my ankle really bad. And that was very embarrassing. So I feel your pain. Guys, there is no better time to visit Japan than the springtime. I'm talking cherry blossom viewing. Springtime is one of the most beautiful times to come to Japan. And just like One Piece, it is peak and you don't want to miss it. And that's why I'm happy to share that today's sponsor, Klook, is making traveling to Japan easier and more cost effective than ever. And they are offering up to 50% off multiple tours that they're doing in Japan, Korea, and Taiwan this season, March 1st to 31st. This includes multiple cherry blossom tours across the country, as well as other activities you can do around Japan, including Disneyland, Universal Studios, and many other cool activities. But what exactly is Klook? Klook is an experience-based booking platform with thousands of destinations around the world. They make traveling through Asia extremely easy because their website is translated in multiple languages, and you can even book in your own currency. Even I have used Klook in the past when I was booking tickets to the Team Labs exhibit here in Tokyo. And I can tell you without a doubt, Klook had the best ticket deals. So make sure no matter what you're doing, look on Klook first. They almost always have best deals. Not only is Klook offering up to 50% off their tours, you can also use my code MaxDCapo to stack an additional 10% off of a majority of their experiences on their website. Guys, I know that international trips use a lot of cash, so make sure to use Klook to save money on your trip to Japan so that you can use it somewhere else, like going to the conbini and buying copious amounts of bread or buying a whole bunch of gachapon on the streets of Shibuya. Save the money, make sure to check the links in the description and start booking an activity on Klook today. Once again, shout outs to Klook for sponsoring today's video.
Racing in Japan taught me to respect other people's work like a lot more. Whereas in America, it's like you just do your part, you pay for what needs to get paid, and then you go home. And like you don't really think about, oh, what is my mechanic doing right now? He put in all this work for me. He like tried so hard for me. But in Japan, like when you're sitting on the grid, everybody comes up to take pictures for about 5 minutes. The grid is like on the straight. We have standing starts when the race starts. Our cars are parked there, and you have like an umbrella person, and then your mechanics are adjusting your tire pressure, and people can come up, fans can come up. And at that time, you're just like sitting in your car thinking about all of the people that worked so hard for you to get there, and all the fans that are like supporting you that got you there. And I feel like that's what I learned a lot in Japan.
Yeah, it's like
in this industry.
It's almost like kizukai culture, right?
Kizukai
is like thinking about your surroundings and like the people around.
So then I think it helps you also not make as much mistakes, because you got to think about, if I break this car, I just took like all these hours from this mechanic that helped me, like, you know, help get the car to this stage. So you just destroyed everything, you know. Sorry, it's going to get into another topic, but the racing in Japan is very respectful compared to America. Like the way that they battle, touching is really, really bad in America. In Japan, touching cars, like bumping and stuff, is really bad in Japan. And in America, if you go to the entry-level series, I mean, even in the top-level series, they're just hitting each other, bump drafting and stuff like that. So, yeah, it's very different.
It's like road rage is not...
A little bit, yeah. There's a huge culture difference in racing as well. The kind of like unspoken rule is that if you do have contact, you both have to go to each other and kind of like apologize and like talk it out.
Wow.
Obviously, it doesn't always happen that way, because racing has a lot of emotions in it, but usually it is that way.
But I can imagine it's like, hey, you got to respect the car.
Yeah.
Respect the driver. Go apologize, type of thing.
I was told my manners are bad and I need to respect more from one person before.
Did they say like, gyogi warui or something? Mana ga
warui.
Wow.
Yeah. But actually, they were doing the same thing back, and I was like, it's racing.
Hearing that, you almost stopped, that's actually kind of crazy. Because, I've only known you a few years, but I see it like Hana Burton, the racer, but it could have just completely stopped there.
Yeah, well, I don't think it would have. I think the feeling was that, but I don't think I would have stopped.
Okay. You're the feel. Okay,
yeah.
We kind of skipped over the idea of how you actually made the transition, though, from being in America and then finding your way to just, okay, I'm going to live in Japan and do this in Japan rather than doing it in the United States, Why did you want to do it over here rather than the United States?
I came to Japan maybe towards the end of COVID era. It was 2022.
Must have been like, 2022. COVID ended.
I had a friend that helped me out. Her name is Arisa Mizuhara. She got me like a visa. And then I came over here and she helped me connect with Toyota TRD, who connected me with Goodyear. And on like a 1 week notice, they were like, hey, can you come to Japan to like check out the race to see what it's like and meet us? And then I booked a flight on my credit card points. And it was super cheap back then because nobody was going to
Sapphire
Japan.
Reserve?
Yes.
It was, that's the best card for traveling.
Yeah.
Millennials. Well, Gen Z and millennials, yeah.
Yeah, I went to Japan to meet her, and then we flew to Hokkaido together to watch a race and then meet Goodyear there. And then from there, they're like, hey, how fast can you get your competition license to enter the race at the end of the year?
Damn, that was quick.
Yeah.
The jump, though, was basically you were working at that company in America that was a Japanese company.
And I was driving on the circuit by myself for like 3.5 years before I went to Japan.
And doing the social media thing online, and then it kind of progressed to, okay, I'm assuming also, because you're Japanese, just like, well, it makes sense to go to Japan.
Yeah, it was way too costly to do it in the US. So I looked into Japan, and one of my friends who's a pro driver, he recommended Yaris Cup. And then I looked into Yaris Cup, and then I asked Arisa about it because I invited her karting. And then we talked about it, and she's like, wait, I have a friend at TRD, like I can introduce you. And then from there, like everything just came together.
The cool thing about hearing your story so far is basically like your one time that you were on the circuit that you're like, oh, I like doing this. How do I do this as a job? Or like, how do I make money from this and live? And it was that one thing. And then you found out how to research these cups because you didn't even like racing, like you said. Like you had no interest.
Yeah.
But you just kind of came to learn about, oh, there's these different races. I'm going to look this up. Oh, like there's this thing I can go to, I can watch. And then there's different people that kind of helped you along the way.
Yeah.
And introduced you. And because you were racing yourself and putting in all those hours for like 3 years and then building the social media, it lets you go down this path. But it really, it started with that, I guess, that first race and you just grinding it yourself with the social media. And you said that you're like one of the only ones that did this. And that's, I guess, why you started later than a lot of these other racers.
Yeah, I don't think I would have been able to start when I was younger. I always feel bad because I started so late compared to my peers because I'm like, oh, these are things that they know before me. Like they studied this before me. They made these mistakes when they're younger. But actually, I don't think I would have been able to start young because you need a lot of resources.
The resources.
Yeah. So I'm happy with how it all came together and that like I was working on all these puzzle pieces that I needed. And then when the opportunity presented itself, I had them to like present. So I was able to take those chances. Like if I wasn't working on my driving before getting the opportunity with Goodyear, I wouldn't have been able to do it. Or if I didn't have the social media to help promote like whatever Goodyear tires or whatever, then I wouldn't have been able to do that race. So.
I mean, I think this is really cool because it's something that people have heard before, but you're never too old to start doing something. I mean, within reason, right? Yeah. But, maybe nobody else did the path that you took, but you were able to make it happen. And I feel like that's very amazing because like, who else were you going to look up to like find this path? It was like, you just kind of had to make it yourself. Yeah, no, I just find that very cool that you did it anyway.
Thanks. I think like it's important to think if you start late on something, you just got to work like however that many times harder. So for me, like I have to think about like, oh, I started this much later. They had this many more races than me. So I should be on the sim while they're sleeping, while they're like having fun, while they're like working and 9 to 5. I should be on the sim practicing.
Yeah.
So I do feel like that stress sometimes when I'm not like on, like I should be karting, I should be simming, I should be like practicing something.
That's just like the sense of urgency you need to like pick things up and catch up, I guess. I feel the same way like doing YouTube, honestly.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I'm in my I'm in my mid 30s now, technically.
But age doesn't really matter for that kind of thing, does it?
It does not matter, but I always think like, oh man, I wish I had a little bit more know-how,
I see.
especially since I could have. But now, I'm okay with learning from other people and picking things up. And I think kind of like what you were saying, you said that you probably wouldn't have been able to race because of the resources. For me, I don't think I would be able to be interviewing people like I do unless, of course, I went through what I did in my 20s where I was just grinding with regular work. I would say, pretty devoted to karate, like training in karate. And also, I taught English, to Japanese people, which made me very open to being able to have a conversation with somebody. So all of that put together with me having to meet all these different people and doing all these different things maybe led me to the point where I am, where I can do this as a job. So I do think about that.
Especially in Japan, they have like the culture of like gambaru.
Gambaru culture.
Yeah.
Gamba.
So like that's why I feel like it was really nice having these people in Japan. Like when I do get into that kind of mentality, like, dang, I should have done this, whatever. They're just like, no, you just have to like work harder. Like now, korekara gambaru shikanai. Yeah.
Japan is definitely the country of like gambariya-san. Everyone is gambatteru until
you die.
Until they die. But do you feel like because you live in Japan now that you started to pick up certain like Japanese mindsets or anything like that? Do you feel yourself you've really like learned and picked up from racing in Japan?
Well, I think having like that kind of like, you shouldn't have those kind of excuses. You just got to like work harder is one of those things.
That's very Nihonjin.
Yeah. But I do feel myself changing a bit. Like I feel like I'm not minding those like small noisy things anymore and like focusing on the bigger picture. And I feel like it's kind of like a Japanese culture thing. I don't know.
I remember one time when I was going back to karate. It was just a few years ago. And maybe you feel this as a half Japanese person as well, but sometimes, we're not seen as fully Japanese, of course. Like you are Japanese, but you're not. But I remember this one guy in karate when I was like kind of struggling with focusing and like doing stuff the right way. He was like, Max Nihonjin desho? Max Nihonjin daro? Like you should be able to do this as a Nihonjin. So he was kind of like giving me the card, like, you are Japanese, so you should be able to do this, And that actually gave me a little bit of this idea of, actually, I need to switch my mindset to be a little more stoic about this and more disciplined, which maybe that is a Japanese thing. I mean, obviously, it's not necessarily just Japanese, and people who definitely come here and I think like start to live in Japan and spend a lot of time with Japanese people would probably understand this idea of like gambaru, which means like do your best. It translates as do your best, but it's really not do your best. It's like it's more like grind it out. Like I don't know. Like how would you explain gambaru?
Gambaru. Do you know the word like grit?
Grit, yes.
Yeah, it's kind of like the action
of grit.
Yeah.
The action of grit. I like that. Yeah. It's like gritting your teeth and just going for it and working 12 hours a day.
Yeah, I don't know. You know what's really hard for me in Japan? I don't know if it's just because like I'm an American or if it's just me and I had like social anxiety before I came here.
Okay.
Aisatsu.
Aisatsu. Are you introverted?
Yeah, I am.
Oh, okay.
I'm very introverted.
So what about aisatsu? What is aisatsu?
Aisatsu, like hello, like making sure everybody in the room is greeted properly, I guess. So like especially in racing, like when you go to a pit or like you should be greeting people in the pit and maybe next to your pit as well. But I didn't realize like it's kind of like rude not to do that. Because like in America, you don't have to do that to everybody in the room.
Well, in America, you just say hi.
Yeah, and then I feel like usually it's like, I know there's not that much of a hierarchy in America, but it feels like maybe the higher ups will say hi to everybody else. But in Japan, it's like the
people lower?
Yeah, should say hi to everyone else. But like, I don't want to bother people, So I'm just like...
But that's just the culture, right? That's the opposite, where you have to say like even when I came through this door, I have to remember like, oh, ojama shimasu.
Yeah.
Did I say that? Yeah, over there when I went to the office, it's like ojama shimasu. Like, I'm sorry for intruding. Just different things that you need to say to like lower and higher. It's the hierarchy, right? Wow, so you struggled a little bit with aisatsu, huh?
Yeah, but more recently, I tried to start playing into more of like my American personality and being a little bit more brighter, and then everybody just receives that more nicely. I feel like if I just like, oh, then they think like, oh, she's just like a gaijin.
It makes it easier, especially like since you are American and half Japanese, right? I've gone through this as well, and I've talked to other mixed people about this, but because we already kind of look different, if you do the more foreign style greetings, it'll be well received because it's like, like that's right, she's a foreigner.
Yeah, it's good just to be warm, I think.
Yeah.
Because before I was being too scared and just like not saying anything or just like, ohagozaimasu. And then I think they think that's more rude. So I should just be like, okay to be loud and disruptive and
the American in you. I know that feeling because definitely in Tokyo. So I don't know about you, but every time I go back to the United States and then come to Japan, I have like a few days or weeks where I'm a little bit like very bright, and even to like the conbini staff, I'm just like, domo konnichiwa. Like I'm trying to smile and like make conversation. And then I slowly like get quieter and quieter.
Oh my gosh.
Where I'm just like, arigato.
Yes. I have those.
That happens to you?
Yeah, it does.
You almost want to chat up the staff and stuff.
Yeah, I'm so nice and friendly, and we're just like talking to everybody and just like making friends. But then like the more I stay in Japan, the quieter it gets.
I think it's the Japanese-ness of like, oh, I don't want to bother this person.
Yeah.
And you're like, arigato. I have one, just random, but I have a conbini near me, and the one staff, it's so friendly with me. And every time I walk in, it's like, feels like America. It's like I'm chatting with a friend. But sometimes it's like, now I don't want to go in if I don't want to talk to him.
Oh, yeah.
Where I'm like, I don't want to talk to anyone tonight. Oh, he's working there. Okay, I'm going to the conveni across the street.
To make sure that doesn't happen, sometimes I have a rotation of konbinis in different times to go to.
Like,
that's how like introverted I am.
You have rotational konbini.
Yeah.
You know, it's also funny because I think the mixed people or like gaijin stand out, so you will be remembered much more than. And And I also have the personality where, if somebody does talk to me, I'll try to like make it a fun thing. So the next time they see me, it's like they remember that. I'm like, oh, shoot, like I have to play up this character still. Yeah, I shoot myself in the foot. Well, what else about Japanese culture that have you picked up or like had to get used to that from moving here?
So like when I first came here, I thought everybody hated me, especially the like men, a little bit older, because they don't make facial expressions.
So true.
And
Showa oji-san.
Yeah, they don't make facial expressions. So I just think everyone like hates me. And I always had to ask my friend Arissa that I was talking about earlier, do they hate me? And she's like, no, they're probably just shy. They think you're cute or something like that.
It might be true.
So like it actually helps my confidence if I think that way now. So when someone doesn't give me a nice facial expression, I just think, oh, he probably thinks I'm cute.
It's such a positive.
It helps me. Okay. It helps me.
Is this
not
like,
worry about it.
Is this like the whole like picture everyone naked in the room?
Yeah.
Everyone thinks I'm cute.
So I try not to overthink like my interactions too much.
Speaking of communication and relationships, what do you think about dating in Japan with Japanese men?
I've heard like there's a lot of red flags with Japanese men, and especially those like TikToks.
Oh God, of course it's a TikTok. I don't know if we can, how much weight can we give these TikToks?
Well, they're always interviewing like about Japanese men, and they're always, have like these stereotypes about them being unfaithful or whatever. I don't know if that's like entirely true. I think it's definitely based on.
It's probably as true as it is in America.
Yeah,
that's how
exactly.
I feel like.
I think America just hides more, and Japan is more like, oh, this is how it is.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's one thing in Japanese culture, that they just like say things how it is. Like they're not scared to say something to imply something else. They just say things. How can I be more specific?
How can you be more
this?
specific? Well,
a lot of people in Japan say things about you that might be offensive in the U.S., but then it's just like a fact that they say, and they're nothing to be embarrassed about. They just, say it. Oh, for example, maybe I can relate it back to racing, but like somebody will say, oh yeah, you're really bad at this.
Oh,
it's just like a fact.
Like there'd be like hetakuso.
Yeah. But it's like, oh yeah, I am slow there, so that means I am bad at that. Whereas in America, they're like, oh, maybe we can try like working on this. If you can do this a little bit better, like it might go well. It's just, more fluffier.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah.
Because some people would say it's the opposite, where Americans are more frank about certain things. And Japan is more like beat around the bush.
Yeah.
But I guess it just depends on the situation.
Yeah, it's so weird.
Maybe like you're saying when it comes down to like feelings, Japanese people are more straight and then Westerners are not. But when it's like maybe like let's get this shit done, Americans are more straight, but Japanese people might like have a roundabout way of saying, oh, because we need to do this, this, and this, and this, and this, we should do this.
Yeah.
Whereas Americans would say, we should do this because this and this.
When I was struggling with something on the sim, it's really frustrating for me. So I was like, oh my God, I suck so bad. And if it was America, they would have been like, oh, you just like need to work a little bit harder. Like we can get there, we can do this, whatever. In Japan, they're like, oh, でもそれが今までの実力 or something like that. So you have to like work harder and then you can fix it.
You know what? Even my reaction right now, I was like on the Western reaction, but if I think of it like from a Japanese perspective, it's like,
yeah, but it's true.
Yeah,
it is true.
That is true. You need to just get better.
In US, you can't say that without people getting offended. Like, you have to be like, oh, you can, whatever.
Yeah.
You can't just be like, but that's because like you didn't work hard enough before. So like if you work harder from now, you can get there.
Yeah, but you're gonna have to work.
But you have to face the fact that you do suck.
Face the fact that you suck. Put that on a t-shirt. That's that from Hana Burton. I always say like coming to Japan is almost like a different world because just how the way things work and the philosophy is different. And I almost make it a meme like, oh, everything's just different here. But yeah, I think a lot of the differences comes from the mindset. So why Japanese people act the way they do or say the things they say in the way that they say it comes from literally the mindset. It's just interesting, I think, being between, especially America and Japan can't be any further apart from each, like culturally. So I think it is really interesting to see.
Yeah, there's good and bad parts that, you can just take the good parts of both sides and make it the best.
Yeah, the best of both worlds.
Yeah, Hannah Montana.
Hannah Montana.
Hannah Montana.
Hannah Montana, that's you. Oh, okay. But yeah, so where can people, if they wanted to see you race?
I think so. The Kyojo races that I'm going to do this year, it might be the only series I'm running this year. It's kind of like off season right now, so it's undecided. But that should be on YouTube under Driving Athlete. And then you can find me on Instagram, TikTok. Oh, also, I'm running a comic brand called Circuit Orange. I just want to
go for it.
So I have a comic brand called Circuit Orange, which I started to help kids and people who can't afford racing to start racing. So if you like comics and stuff, go check that out.
Thanks everybody for watching, and we'll see you guys in the next video.
Thank you.
Arigatou gozaimasu.
Thank you.